The Liberals are trying to put some fine details to their latest gun confiscation program. What does that mean for Canadian gun owners? We ask the National Firearms Association today. I'm Sheila Gunn Reid, and you're watching The Gun Show.
We're going to be upfront with Canadians about how we're going to cost this program. It is a program that does not have precedent. It is a program that is national in scale, and it is a program that will require good faith partnerships within industry, which is why we reached out to the CSAAA, but as well with law enforcement and with gun owners themselves. And we're going to do this work in good faith with all of those folks.
Can you ballpark a figure, though, at this point?
Well, the budget, which was just introduced a few weeks back, does allocate about just shy of $30 million or $29 million to create a platform, which we're going to use in conjunction with the CSAAA. But then we're going to roll out the next phases of this program, which will put more of a focus on individual owners. So right now, our primary focus is to work with industry and vendors and small businesses in the gun industry, and this agreement is a significant milestone on that front.
Well, that is Canada's Public Safety Minister, Marco Mendicino, announcing some details for his gun buyback program, which is not a gun buyback program at all. It's a gun confiscation program. He cannot buy from me or buy back from me that which was never his to begin with. This all comes from the May 2020 order in council by the Liberals, which banned at the time 1,500 popular models of Canadian firearms. That list has now grown to 2,000 models. And the Liberals say that it's going to cost upwards of $30 million to confiscate the lawfully acquired, lawfully owned property from millions of Canadians made criminals through no fault of their own. Now, in the wake of that announcement, controversy exploded in the Canadian firearms community as an industry lobby group admitted that they would be participating in gathering up data for the Liberals to execute their gun confiscation program. It is wild. And joining me today is Rick Igersich of the National Firearms Association to help us navigate through this crazy past week in the Canadian firearms community. It's a lot, and I'm glad to have Rick on the show. Take a listen. This free episode of The Gun Show is brought to you by
Adam Sos here for Rebel News. You know, our company is growing quickly, and we'd actually like for your company to grow too. That's why this ad space that I'm speaking through right now is actually available for you to purchase. So instead of people listening to me, they could actually be learning about your company, learning about your business. If this interests you, if this is an opportunity you'd like to capitalize on, send us an email at ads@rebelnews.com.
So joining me now is good friend of the show and good friend of Rebel News, Rick Igersich of the National Firearms Association. Rick, thanks for coming on the show. So the Liberals have just announced the details, but not really, of their gun buyback program, which is, as we were saying off air, a complete misnomer because they were never the Liberals' guns to buy back, but here we are. So tell us what's going on there. What did the Liberals just announce? Put it in layman's terms, because I'm not actually sure the Liberals know what they just announced.
Oh, thanks for having me on your show again, Sheila. And I'm sure the Liberals, they're it's classic Liberal talk. But basically, there's been a lot of stuff that's happened over the last few days. Starting on April 26th, the Public Safety Minister, Marco Mendicino, made a statement that he's partnering with the CSAAA, which is the Canadian Sporting Arms and Ammunition Manufacturers Association. And basically, it has come to light that he has signed a contract with them for $707,000. I think that was the latest. I think that's the factual number. There's been some numbers thrown around 700,000, but I believe the actual number is $707,000 for this buyback program in relation to the dealers. Now, the CSAAA is the Canadian industry group that represents a few gun shops across Canada. Definitely not all of them, and they made this deal unbeknownst to us, and from what I've heard, even some of their board members with the government. They've been in talks for a year and a half about what they're going to do and how they're going to do this. I received a phone call about 12 hours before this happened from the president of the CSAAA stating that there's going to be a big announcement the next day involving the government and the CSAAA. So I really didn't get into the details of it, and he really didn't want to. So I waited till the next morning, and Minister Mendicino made the announcement that they are partnering with them, and by doing that, a gun organization is basically on the side of the Liberals with these firearm seizures. And what they're going to do is, the way I understand it, is the CSAAA is going to go and contact every gun shop in Canada to see what sort of inventory they have in firearms and parts for those firearms. And they're going to provide that list to the government for the government to use on this so-called buyback program, which I believe is probably, if there's going to be any buyback at all, it's going to be cents on the dollar. Plus, it's basically what it's all doing is identifying all these firearms and parts that are in the hands of the dealers, which really brings into play a bunch of different issues. The first issue is that there's federal court case going on that we were a part of. We financed the Cassie Premack federal court case against the government, and along with we were grouped in with a bunch of other groups, and some of these other people that were involved in this court action are actually firearm shops owners. So this kind of nullifies their court case, in my opinion, when the government is finding out what they have and offering money for them. And meanwhile, there's an active court case, which is now in the judge's hands in deliberation. I believe is nullifying some of these cases. And then secondly, I believe that by these people cooperating with the Liberals, this is just going to fast track the actual gun seizures. As far as I know, the government has nothing in place as far as the gun seizures go. There's no announcement of money. There's no plan on how they're going to do this. But in my opinion, this really fast tracks the Liberals' seizure plans, because now they're claiming that the gun industry and the firearms owners are cooperating with them, which is a falsehood. This organization is cooperating, but firearms, I can assure you, firearms owners across Canada are not cooperating with the Liberals on this deal. So at the end of the day, Canada's National Firearms Association has cut all ties with the CSSA. We will be more than happy to reunite and rejoin them if they go back on this deal and cancel the contract and cancel the $707,000 with the government. We would be more than happy to work with them, and so we can all follow the same direction as far as these firearms seizures go.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of the gun rights organizations were completely caught flat-footed by what the CSAAA has done. And, not to confuse them with the CSSA, but it sounds like the CCFR, the NFA, and the CSSA, the Canadian Shooting Sports Association, were all sort of blindsided by discovering that this industry lobby group that's supposed to lobby on behalf of the industry, serve as a counterbalance against what the government is trying to do, that they, for lack of a better term, lent their credibility to the government so that the government can say, look, we've got the gun people on board with our buyout. That's what it looks like to me.
Wow. Definitely the lobby groups weren't aware of what was going on. They were aware of that there was something going on. Like I say, I didn't get notified till 12 hours before. I don't know when the other groups were notified, but their board wasn't aware of what was going on either. I spoke to one of their board members, and they had no idea about this $707,000 or this contract. They knew, the board knew that this is the information the board member gave me. Their board members knew that there was something going on, but they had no idea of what the particulars were, especially a contractor, especially this influx of 700 and some $1,000.
It hit the gun rights community like a lead balloon. Everybody was sort of just shocked because it came on the heels of the Liberals announcing that I think it's roughly $30 million that they are considering spending on the gun buyback, or at least that's what they're announcing it's going to cost. I don't know if it's going to cost that much this year because it doesn't seem like they budgeted for it in the budget. But that is what they anticipate the cost will be, which is absolute idiocy because they have no idea how many of the guns on the ban list are out there, where they are. How many of them came into the country after the gun registry. They have no idea how many of them weren't registered ever to begin with. So they can't even get a best estimate, but they know exactly how much it's going to cost. I always go back to the SKS because it's cheap. It's a lot of, it's an entry level gun and there's a lot of them out there. And the Liberals don't know how many of them are out there, but they know how much it's going to cost to round them all up.
Well, there's some stuff that's come to light on the SKS as of yesterday. But anyway, just like you mentioned, the Liberals don't know how many guns are out there and how much money they have to spend. Well, with this program, this contract with this partner, I guess what Mendocino called it, this partnership, they're gonna get a pretty comprehensive list, at least what's at the gun shops. And I don't know if the gun shops are going to provide. I hope they don't provide a list of some of the firearms they sold and where they went. By law, I don't think that information. The government is entitled to that information. And that could change because laws are changing every day. But like I say, this basically turned the firearms rights upside down in the last few days. Like you said, it was like being hit with a lead balloon. It turned it just blindsided us. Yeah,
it's terrible. It is terrible. And if I were a gun retailer, and I'm not, but if I were, I would say, make me turn this information over.
Exactly.
You're not getting it until such time as you're going to make me turn it over.
Exactly. And that's just to add to that. And that's a bunch of phone calls I've been getting the last few days from gun retailers that we're not interested in this. We're not going to be involved in this. And we're going to hold out to the end because, like I say, there is active court cases going right now that are in deliberation. Bad time to make this. Well, this move shouldn't have ever been made, but it was really, really a bad time to make it.
No, you just hinted on something with the SKS. Why don't you give us a little bit of details on that?
Okay, I'll have to. I've got so much stuff here. I'm going to have to refer to my notes. But yesterday, Marco Mendocino announced that there will be amendments to Bill C-21 again to prohibit more legally and commonly owned firearms, and they're going to add a definition to an assault-style firearm. Couple things. First of all, there's going to be a firearms advisory committee created to help to determine the classification of these firearms. Now, he mentioned all the groups that were going to be involved in this advisory committee, and he mentioned, government bureaucrats, politicians, and a bunch of anti-firearms groups, but he didn't mention any pro-firearms groups, which I found a little amazing. So they're going to create this. Did you? Were you? Well, not really. Not what? But anyway, yeah. So to add to that, so Mendocino wants the manufacturers. Actually, wants to give the manufacturers a set of guidelines on what firearms to produce for Canada, falling into these new classifications. I guess is the right word for it. The Order in Council came up. Now it's up to 2,000 firearms. It started, as everybody knows, it started at 1,500. He admitted yesterday that there's 2,000 firearms listed in the Order in Council. What he said was that the list is with their studies and stuff. They've added a bunch of firearms to the list. And now you brought up the SKS, which is really funny because he made the statement yesterday that he said that the SKS, they're not going to ban the SKS now. After speaking, this is a good one too. After speaking to hunters, sport shooters, indigenous groups, and everybody else across the country, they're gonna leave the SKS off the list, which I found really shocking because at the end of the day, the SKS is probably the only firearm that's available in Canada. Well, one of the modern ones that was actually built for as a military firearm.
Yeah, it was literally built for war.
Yeah,
but it's interesting that the Liberals said this thing was an assault style firearm, like what, 72 hours ago, and then all of a sudden they've just changed their mind. It has magically changed into something else after discussions, which means that they really don't know what the hell they're doing.
Well, actually, you know what? And the thing is, I get into this a little. His statement yesterday, he didn't, talking about C-21, he didn't use the term handgun freeze. He was saying a handgun ban now. Yeah. So I don't know what direction that's going in, but I'm sure Mendocino is very well versed in how he puts the message out, and I think that was a message. And he made the statement that the Liberals are moving in the direction of what most Canadians want. Yeah. And blame the Conservatives for creating a national crisis over their last attempt to get rid of the amendments. So he's definitely playing politics with this one. There's no doubt about that. And getting into my next thing is the term the Liberals are actually, and I mentioned this earlier, are putting a definition. They're making up a definition for an assault style firearm to be, get this, enshrined in the criminal code. So it's going to make make it extremely difficult for future governments to reverse and revise their firearms definition in legislation. That's a direct quote from Mendocino. But going back to the definition, so a firearm that is not a handgun that discharges centerfire ammunition is in a semi-automatic manner and designed with a detachable magazine with a capacity of 6 or more cartridges. So that puts a whole bunch of new firearms on the list because there's a lot of semi-automatic firearms out there that could take 8 or 10 shot magazines. That was his statement. Now they did release a government paper on that. It's very vague and there's no real good definitions in them, but that's the direction we're going. And like I say, this stuff has all happened within the last 4 days. It's unbelievable, Sheila.
Yeah, that captures so many hunting rifles and sports shooting firearms in this country. I wish people who were not firearms owners were more keenly attuned to this, because this is the government just deciding one day that your lawfully acquired property, they don't like it, so you can't have it. And they get to talk to your political enemies about whether or not you get to keep it. And you just have to sit there and take it. And then once it's banned, they'll pay you a pittance, as you say, pennies on the dollar, to confiscate it from you. Thankfully, we've got places like Alberta where we have our own CFO saying, the hell you will. So
yeah, exactly.
I feel good about living in Alberta. Although we are approaching an election, it's election season here in Alberta. I think Danielle Smith will do fine, not as good as she should, but fine. Yeah. But I really feel for the people of Ontario and Quebec, where they don't have a provincial government that is standing up for the rights of lawful gun owners.
And, we've been lobbying Doug Ford in Ontario, too, because if he were to jump on board with this, this would basically squash this whole thing. He just I don't know. There's a lot of federal money coming into Ontario right now, and I think that's part of the problem. I was in Calgary a couple of weeks ago at the Calgary Gun Show, and I had a really good conversation with Terry Bryant, the Alberta CFO, and she is one of our soldiers on the front lines too. I just hope the government does not change in Alberta, because that is going to do a lot of damage to what Terry Bryant has done and has accomplished. I just hope that. It goes our way.
Yeah, and it may seem like just an Alberta issue, but Alberta really seems to be leading the way. They're sticking their neck out first and saying, okay, well, this is what we're going to do. And then the dominoes fall in Saskatchewan and then in other provinces and territories. They seem to be the ones who are willing to say, okay, well, we're going to do this first. This is how we're going to do it. If you want to come along, that's fine. So if the government does change in Alberta, pray for us that it doesn't. It will affect gun rights across the entire country, because they really seem to be leading the charge, fighting back against this at a provincial level.
Yeah, and the fact that people that are involved in the firearms industry are jumping on board with the Liberals doesn't make things any better. It actually makes my job a lot harder. I had some really good ties with CSAAA, and I regret cutting our ties, but I have to represent firearms owners across Canada. I can't be connected to an organization that works with the government, moving forward to these firearms confiscations. Liberals were for a buyback as for a confiscation as a buyback. But I will not. Our organization will not be involved with that. We don't want any part of that.
Yeah, it really is a shame, because one of the key points of all the gun rights organizations and all the lobby groups is that we don't want to give our data to the government, because giving the data to the government always leads to confiscation. And then you have this industry lobby group that is taking a contract to round up the data and then give it to the Liberals. And it was just shocking to see.
I spoke to them, and I said, why are you doing this? Well, their reply was that we're helping the poor ma and pa gun shop owners across Canada with this payout. So I said, is any of this $707,000 going towards the ma and pa gun shops? Oh, absolutely not. That just to cover the logistics of doing this survey. I go, oh, I said, so. I travel across Canada, and I go to a lot of gun shops, Sheila, and the smaller gun shops maybe have one or two of these rifles that have already been washed through their books 3 years ago. They did not have any reply when I said, what about the future guns that are illegal now that these people could possibly be selling down the road and making money on and making their profits and making their businesses prosper? What about that? And there was no reply to that end of it. There was just, we're helping them out right now because they're in trouble, which I don't believe is the fact. I believe there is some bigger gun shops in the country that do have some of this stock. But at the end of the day, I don't believe that this is going to make or break them. I believe the fact that they're banning all these firearms in Canada is going to be the deal breaker for these gun shops, because it's firearms people want and they can't sell anymore. And that, when you cut stock, you cut profits, and at the end of the day, that's when businesses go down. Not because of some dormant or stale stock that they have in their stock rooms right now.
Well, stranded assets is a real thing, but especially here in Alberta, we get oil and gas stranded assets all the time, thanks to the government. But what's worse is that the list of stranded assets continues to grow, in this case by 25%. And it will continue to grow as long as you have, for lack of a better term, yellow organizations like this organization selling up their membership. You know what? How you help these mom and pop shops who don't have the resources to fight? You help them fight. That's what you do. That's why we initially started Fight the Fines, which we handed off to the Democracy Fund. When people were getting pandemic fines, we weren't going to pay their fines, but we would do whatever it took to fight like hell on their behalf.
Exactly.
Spending an enormous amount of money to fight an $800 fine. But it was the point, is that you never capitulate to the government, because the government will always take more. And I don't know if you listen to SiriusXM Andrew Wilkow, but he always says on the Patriot Channel, but he always says, when the government is handing you something with an open hand, the other hand is always a fist. And that's what's happening here. So, if the CSAAA thinks that they are going to somehow get ahead by appeasing the crocodile will eat you. He just might eat you last, but he will get around to eating you. And that's what's going to happen here.
Yeah, and I'll say again, there's a way around this. They could cancel this contract and give the money back, and we will be more than happy to join up with them again and help them fight for gun rights and property rights in Canada. That it's a very simple solution. I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but the direction we're moving in right now is not doing the firearms lobby or firearms owners across Canada any good at all.
Yeah, this is exactly what the Liberals want. I would love to hear that the CSAAA canceled this contract, listened to the feedback from the gun community and said, whoa, we made a big mistake. We're not going to do this, and we're going to get back into the fight because this list of banned firearms just keeps growing and it's never going to stop. If they said that, I'd be their biggest fan. There's nothing
and
better.
So would I. I would be at their door in a few hours and say, hey, let's join again and let's fight this fight. But I hope that's what happens. Like I say, it was regrettable that we had to cut our ties, but we had to. We can't be associated with a organization like that works that's working against what we believe in. Yeah,
I will say something about conservatives, or at least people on the right side of the political spectrum. We do believe in redemption. If you screw up and you're sincere about it and you change your ways, we're your biggest fans.
Absolutely.
But I'm not seeing that quite yet. So if the CSAAA is listening, this is from me directly to you. Reverse this. Get back in the fight, because the Liberals are only going to use this to further divide the gun community, and they are going to use this as justification to do more. So please cancel this contract and come back to your sanity.
I agree.
Now, Rick, you folks at the NFA, you have your AGM fast approaching. If I can get there, I will. I'm not sure if I can with my travel schedule. I've got other things to work on. But tell us about the AGM. That's coming up very, very quick for you guys.
Yeah, it's actually this weekend in Montreal. The Saturday's the day for the public. We're there a few days earlier having meetings. It's going to be a good AGM. It's in Quebec, and I've noticed the trend in Quebec over the last few months. A lot of Quebecers have been jumping on board with the NFA. We've got Guy Morin speaking, he's a well-known person in Quebec. He's a pro-rights, pro-firearms guy. He's speaking. We're gonna have a few other speakers. We're gonna have some of our people talking about what's going on in the firearms world. We're gonna be giving some firearms away. It's gonna be a good day. The NFA realized that times are tough for a lot of Canadians right now, so we waived our admittance. So as long as you pre-register by email, you're welcome to attend, and we will accommodate you. It's filling up quick. I think it's getting really full right now. But the NFA understands what's going on out there. We realize that the last few years have been tough for a lot of Canadians, and especially firearms owners. With all this stuff going on, the Liberals are, they're stepping on the gas with all their legislation, and they should be focusing on something else besides us. But we're their go-to every time. But so if you can come and attend, we'd appreciate you being there. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll. I want to get out to, and I want to talk to all our members. I want to speak to you guys one-on-one, and let you know what's going on and what we're doing in the firearms world. Like I say, we've got an active court case right now. I'm going to touch on that, and like I say, it's going to be a great time. So if you can come on out, it's in Montreal. The information's online if you want to register. Hopefully you can attend, Sheila, and maybe we'll even get you up on the stage and you can talk about some freedoms that the Canadians are being deprived of right now.
I will do my very best. Now, Rick, how do people get involved in the NFA? Because as people can see, you are firmly committed to the battle for firearms rights, and you won't let anybody sell out the movement. So how do people get involved in the NFA and support the work that you're doing? Because you're doing important work behind the scenes, including legal challenges.
Yeah, and like you say, Sheila, we're dug in deep and we're not giving up. We're giving 110% every day. With all this new stuff coming up, we're on it right away. What you can do is you can visit us on nfa.ca. Buy a membership. Membership for an adult is $35, $30 for a senior. We also offer insurance that covers you in all your sporting activities. Or call us at the office. You can do it by email. There's several ways to join. Like I say, visit us on nfa.ca. And join, become a member. Your money goes towards the good fight and the fight for freedom and the fight for the firearms rights in Canada. So please join. And
you've got a great merch store. I'm a sucker for a good T-shirt, and you guys have some great ones.
Well, you know what? You show up at the AGM, maybe we can hook you up with a couple.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Well, Rick, thanks so much for coming on the show. Thanks so much for the hard work that you do for law-abiding gun owners like myself and my family and my kids and just normal people out there. This is a very mainstream fight, no matter what the Liberals try to paint it as. They try to paint the firearms owning community as fringe, but we're as many of us as play hockey in this country. And thanks so much for sticking up for us. Good luck at your AGM. Maybe I'll see you there, but we'll have you back on the show very, very soon.
Thanks, Sheila. Thanks for having me again. And thanks for spreading the good word across Canada.
You got it. This free episode of The Gun Show is brought to you by my mug.
I know. It's pretty cool. So is this hoodie I got on, and you could have it on too if you check out our special website at rebelnewsstore.com. That's where you can see Freedom Focus hoodies that we have for you, beanies, cell phone cases, you name it, all while supporting our journalism, where we fight to bring you the other side of the story, as opposed to, being forced by the Trudeau government to fund leftist media out of your taxes. The truth is, without you and your generosity, there is no Rebel News. So again, if you like the reports that we bring you and that we also fight for freedoms in Canada, please consider doing some shopping, picking up some swag at rebelnewsstore.com. We appreciate your support.
Well, friends, we've come to the portion of the show where I invite your viewer feedback, because without you, there is no Rebel News. If you don't like what we're doing and if you don't want to support it, we just wither on the vine and die, because we'll never take a penny from Justin Trudeau, unlike the mainstream media, who so rightly deserve to wither and die. But they never will get the market correction that they deserve, because they have the government propping them up because they're saying exactly what the government wants them to say. All that is to say, here's my email. If you want to send me a comment or a question or a story idea or feedback on one of the interviews that I've done, it's sheila@rebelnews.com. Put Gun Show Letters in the subject line, or do not hesitate to leave a comment on one of the platforms where you're watching us, even if it is on this censorship platform of YouTube. But I kind of prefer Rumble. So if I'm looking for comments, I'll go looking on Rumble first. So today's letter comes from Calvin. We don't need to say Calvin's last name, and it's on my gun reporting. Great. Interesting that this is the letter that I chose for today, completely at random. So Calvin writes, "Hey Sheila, thanks for the good coverage of what's going on with challenging the gun laws from Trudeau. It would be nice to hear commentary from some of the applicants as well, not just the CCFR." So this is on a show I did a couple weeks ago with Tracy Wilson from the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights, and she was updating us on their court challenge of the OIC. So that's the Order in Council that banned 1,500 popular models of Canadian firearms, which has now ballooned to 2,000. models. And Rick was just talking about that. Isn't that interesting? In your last story, it was said that there are 6 separate applicants total fighting the OIC. I know that the NFA is one of them. Well, you just heard from Rick, didn't you? And other independent groups not associated with the lobby group. It would be nice to hear their perspective too. I have all the time in the world for Rick Igersich. He works very hard to stick up for people like me because we're too busy doing other things. And I think his organization is so vital, but so are the other organizations. If you care about property rights, get involved with a gun rights organization. They are really ground zero for this kind of thing. I'd still love to see some reporting about the war against raw dairy. You know what? Thank you. Thank you for the reminder. I do mean to get around to reporting on the war against raw dairy. It's so ironic that a government that has decriminalized heroin, meth, cocaine, crack are still against you buying raw dairy from whomever wants to sell it to you, not just the dairy cartel. It's wild. These absolutely insane government regulations that raw dairy is somehow worse for you than meth. Anyway, thanks for the reminder, Calvin, and thanks for writing in, and thanks for caring so deeply about firearms rights in this country. Well, everybody, that's the show for tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see everybody back here in the same time, in the same place next week. And as always, remember, don't let the government tell you that you've had too much to think.